Within the next few minutes, you will be exposed to one of the most unsettling and long-buried theories in the history of psychoanalysis. A theory so disturbing that it was quietly removed from academic discussion and buried in obscure French archives. It doesn't just describe human behavior. It exposes the hidden engine behind social decay, failed relationships, and the silent war between desire and morality. This is not a lecture. This is a descent into the forbidden architecture of the human mind. A flaw ancient, recurring, and contagious, passed through culture like a genetic code of chaos. It was first mapped by a controversial psychoanalyst, Jacques Lacan, who dared to rebuild Freud's lost cathedral of thought. But Lacan went deeper. Where Freud spoke of drives, Lacan spoke of structures, cold, linguistic skeletons holding up the illusion of human sanity. He believed the true law of the mind wasn't moral, it was architectural. The psyche, he said, is not built to seek goodness but to maintain structure, even at the cost of happiness. The law that governs us is not "thou shalt not," but "you must enjoy, even if it destroys you." This is the first forbidden truth. Our moral voice, the superego, is not a conscience. It's a tyrant that demands transgression, urging us to break rules to prove we exist. The very force that keeps civilization running also drives it towards self-destruction. Lacan called this the engine of the death drive, a whisper inside the human mind that says, "Go further, burn more, cross the line." And every time we obey, the whisper grows louder. But where does this whisper come from? Lacan argued that it's born the moment we enter the world of language, the symbolic order of names, rules, and expectations. To become human, we must sacrifice something primal, our first forbidden desire, our original innocence. In that sacrifice, a wound opens, a wound we spend our entire lives trying to fill. And yet, not everyone enters this symbolic order the same way. Some resist it, existing on the margins of the system, operating by instinct, intuition, or raw survival rather than law. They live outside the architecture, unpredictable, fluid, and dangerous to the order itself. Lacan called them the incomplete subjects, the people who mirror society but do not fully submit to it. They move between moralities, shifting shape to survive, thriving where others collapse. You can see them in every age. The opportunist who adapts faster than institutions. The survivor who changes allegiance to live another day. The influencer who reinvents truth to fit the trend. Their morality is not fixed, it's liquid. And in a collapsing world, the liquid always outlasts the stone. History is full of these moral shapeshifters. During the Great Plagues, they were the merchants who sold false cures by day and hoarded real medicine by night. In the Gulag, they were the informants who traded secrets for shelter, rewriting their identities as easily as breathing. In modern times, they are the architects of disinformation, selling belief like a commodity. They survive, but at what cost? Their humanity dissolves in the process, replaced by a terrifying efficiency, the ability to adapt to any moral system without belonging to any. And that's the second forbidden truth. The greatest threat to civilization is not cruelty, it's fluidity. When truth becomes negotiable, when morality is contextual, the symbolic structure collapses. By the end of this journey, you'll see why Lacan's manuscripts were quietly locked away. Because his theory did not just describe madness, it described society itself. Before we continue, if you're ready to explore the darker side of human behavior, check out my ebook, The Black Book of Human Nature. It's a field manual for decoding the instincts we deny, the forces that drive betrayal, loyalty, and desire. The link is in the pinned comment. Now let's descend deeper. To understand the void, we must first understand the blueprint. Because once you see how the human mind was built, you'll never look at anyone the same way again. In the frozen wastelands of the Gulag, there were no heroes, only survivors. When the old laws of society collapsed, when loyalty, faith, and ideology meant nothing, something else emerged, a new kind of morality. It was not written in any book. It was carved into the frost by hunger and fear. A prisoner would betray a friend to live one more night. A husband would watch his wife taken away and remain silent, just to avoid a bullet. And those who adapted fastest, who rewired their sense of right and wrong, were the ones who walked out of that frozen hell alive. From a structural point of view, this was not evil, it was evolution. When the symbolic order, the network of rules, stories, and shared meanings, collapses, morality doesn't disappear. It mutates. It bends around the new center of gravity, survival. The law of "till death do us part" became irrelevant the moment death was guaranteed. In that vacuum, the moral compass reoriented itself toward the one force that still existed, the new power, the authority, the other. Right and wrong became tools for staying alive. Truth became whatever served the next breath. And before we judge that too harshly, look around. The same pattern breathes quietly in the modern world, cleaner, softer, disguised. Consider the corporate ecosystem. Its public morality is one of fairness, justice, compassion. But watch what happens when controversy strikes. When a valuable employee becomes a liability, when an accusation threatens the brand, the moral script changes instantly. The code of innocent until proven guilty dissolves into a new commandment: protect the institution. The narrative of justice is replaced by the narrative of risk management. And those who enforce this shift sleep soundly, not because they are corrupt, but because their moral frame is adaptive. They serve the structure that feeds them. This is not a story of villains. It's a study of architecture, how the human conscience reshapes itself to survive within whatever system it inhabits. Our ethics are not always moral, they are strategic. The psychiatrist Jacques Lacan called this phenomenon symbolic fluidity, the mind's ability to reinvent its own principles in response to new power structures. It is the same mechanism that allows people to rationalize contradictions without feeling hypocritical. They aren't lying. They are simply adjusting to a new gravitational field of meaning. This moral plasticity is both our superpower and our curse. It's what makes us adaptable, cooperative, and empathetic. It's also what allows entire civilizations to justify atrocity under the banner of necessity. When the symbolic law collapses, when the story that holds a society together loses its authority, humans revert to relational morality. What matters is no longer what is true, but who is in charge. Morality becomes performance, calibrated to whatever keeps one included, protected, or loved. We see it every day on social media. A person can champion one cause passionately today, only to abandon it tomorrow when the tide turns. The outrage was real. The conviction was real. But it was real in the same way an actor's tears are real, intense in the moment, vanishing the second the curtain falls. This is not cynicism. It's structural. Human morality is not built on an unshakable foundation. It's built on the shifting sands of belonging. This fluidity, this ability to reshape the self to fit new moral codes, is the hidden mechanism behind every revolution, every cultural collapse, and every social trend. It explains why institutions can turn on their own, why communities can rewrite history overnight, why individuals can perform outrage with total sincerity, only to forget it the next week. And it's why understanding this structure is so vital. Because once you see it, you realize that betrayal, loyalty, and faith are not opposites. They are functions of context. They are strategies the psyche deploys to maintain coherence when the external order shifts. The darkest truth Lacan uncovered was not about evil, it was about fragility. The human moral sense isn't broken. It's dynamic, exquisitely sensitive to pressure, to power, to fear. It evolves in real time to protect the ego from collapse. And that brings us to the ultimate question. If our sense of right and wrong can change with circumstance, if our values are merely reflections of the dominant power, then what fills the void when the structure itself collapses? When the old gods fall silent and no authority remains to imitate, what becomes the source of morality? That, Lacan warned, is where true madness begins. Because when the symbolic order dies, when language and law no longer bind us, the human being is forced to invent meaning from nothing. And in that moment, the line between survival and sin dissolves completely. This is the threshold we now stand upon as a species. The symbolic order that held us for centuries, religion, nation, ideology, is crumbling. And what will replace it will not be morality as we know it. It will be something colder, faster, more adaptive, a new architecture built from chaos itself. Before we go further, if you're ready to explore how this transformation affects modern life, our politics, our relationships, even our sense of identity, then check out my ebook, The Black Book of Human Nature. It's a guide for decoding this moral metamorphosis, for surviving the collapse of the old symbolic world. The link is in the pinned comment. There is a question that splits philosophy open like a fault line. If morality is fluid, what replaces the old law once it collapses? When the Father's voice, the voice of order, tradition, and restraint, finally fades, what takes its place? The answer, according to the banned notebooks of the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, is older than civilization itself. It is the original gravity well of the human psyche. The force that has toppled empires, rewritten religions, and driven artists to madness. That force is desire, not a passing want, but an elemental hunger that shapes identity itself. Lacan called it the metaphysical lack, an emptiness at the core of every human being that can never be filled, only pursued. It is not evil. It is the engine of creation and destruction alike. Every invention, every romance, every war begins as an attempt to fill that lack, to feel whole, if only for a heartbeat. For the modern individual, this desire no longer seeks food or shelter. It seeks validation, the shimmering proof that one exists and matters in the eyes of others. The human ego is a mirror that needs to be seen to believe in itself. Without that reflection, the self begins to fade. That is why social media feels less like entertainment and more like oxygen. Each notification, each like, each view is a microdose of existence. It whispers, "You are real." And so we perform, we curate, we polish our lives into symbols that others might worship, hoping their gaze will keep us whole. But the moment that gaze turns away, the void returns. And the cycle begins again. Lacan described this as the desire of the other, the endless pursuit of being desired by whoever represents power, relevance, or love in a given moment. It's why movements, fandoms, even ideologies can consume people whole. They don't simply want to believe. They want to belong to something that confirms their worth. This fluid morality, this shape-shifting ethics, isn't a flaw of character. It's a survival mechanism of the psyche. When the world's structure changes, the mind recalibrates its compass toward whatever provides validation. The good becomes what is rewarded. The evil becomes what is punished. The result is a morality of mirrors, always reflecting, never originating. History shows the same pattern again and again. When one empire falls and another rises, loyalty rewrites itself overnight. What was once treason becomes patriotism. What was once sin becomes virtue. Human beings adapt faster than their monuments crumble. They must or perish. In our age, the new empire is digital. Algorithms have replaced kings. Tribes form and dissolve in real time. And every user is both priest and sacrifice in the temple of validation. What is good is what trends. What is evil is what gets canceled. The morality of the timeline is the new law of the land. Yet desire has a currency. It trades in symbols of power, wealth, attention, beauty, influence. These are no longer luxuries, they are proofs of existence. To lose them is to risk invisibility, which in psychological terms feels like death itself. That's why entire industries now revolve around manufacturing desirability. Influence has become the new oxygen. To be unseen is to suffocate. But here lies the paradox. Desire feeds on lack. The more validation we receive, the hungrier we become. The algorithm knows this. It is not a technology. It is an artificial superego, a machine that rewards our self-exposure while quietly erasing our sense of self. Lacan warned that the next stage of civilization would not be ruled by morality or law, but by visibility. To exist will mean to be perceived. And those who control perception will control reality itself. So what then is liberation? It isn't withdrawal. It isn't cynicism. It's mastery, learning to generate validation from within rather than from the shifting eyes of the crowd. It's the quiet, dangerous act of becoming your own other. The person who no longer begs the world to confirm their worth becomes a gravitational force in their own right. They attract rather than chase. They influence rather than obey. Their moral compass no longer spins in reaction to power. It becomes a source of power itself. This is what Lacan meant by the centered subject. The human being who recognizes the void, accepts it, and builds structure around it instead of trying to fill it. To reach that state is to step outside the game of validation entirely. Before we go deeper into how that transformation happens, how to become the architect rather than the reflection, take a moment to support the art you see in this video. The maps, the portraits, the design work. Every frame is built to mirror the very structure we're decoding.